Welcome to my channel and my video. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different to my usual content. You may or may not know, but are about to know, that Dungeons and Dragons is a passion of mine. I run several games, one of which is in person in a local shop. The thing about Dungeons and Dragons, you can play it using theatre of the mind, which is purely your imagination, but when it comes to battles, it's good to have maps and things to represent your characters. And that is where miniatures come in. They're basically little models. They can be made of different materials, but most of the ones that I get are 3D resin printed. And you can paint them or not, as you wish, to use on the battlefield. It's very intricate and it's something I steered clear of because I thought, one, I'll be rubbish, and two, I will go down a rabbit hole and spend a fortune. Well, I think both of those things are probably true, but you know, you have to start somewhere. So at the time of filming, I've been painting minis for about 4 months, which means in hours spent painting, probably about 4. No, it's been more than that, a lot more, but I'm still very new to it and a beginner. So I'm going to preface the rest of this video by saying I'm not giving tips on how to paint. I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just doing my own thing. It's probably wrong. Feel free to give me advice in the comments if you want. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and things like that on how to do it properly, but you know, I always seem to put my own spin on things. So with D&D, you can get minis from, well, anywhere really, and I get a lot of them from Etsy. There is one shop in particular called Myths and Sims GOR. I'll put a link to them in the description box below so you can check them out if you want to. They have a huge selection of minis by different artists. Their customer service is outstanding. And I used to work for John Lewis, so I know about customer service. I just so happen to have recently placed an order with them, and I've had a few people say they'd like to see my setup when it comes to painting minis, and so I thought this would be the ideal time to do it. So I'm going to start by opening the pack and show you the minis that I got, one of which I'm then going to go on to show you how I prep it, paint it, and all of that stuff. Just comes well packaged. I've used several sellers on Etsy. There is one that I would not use again at all because the models they sent, the first order 2 arrived broken. They ignored any messages about that. The second one had the most expensive item on it missing. They didn't tell me, and I only got a refund because I pushed for one. And then the third and final order that I placed, there were items missing and incorrect items, and it was just a nightmare. So yeah, but there's quite a few good sellers that I used, but this one in particular I would say is probably my favorite, and I just want to say they don't know I'm doing this, so if you watch this, then hi, and I hope you don't mind. And so I've not been paid by anyone or anything to say or do anything in these videos, etc, etc. There is no paid promotion in any of my videos, even though sometimes it might sound like there is. It's just I get really enthusiastic about supporting certain small businesses and things, and yeah. First of the 2 boxes, so I'm just gonna get everything out first before I start unwrapping anything. That's everything in that one. Different sellers package things in different ways, and this is one of the best ways that I have encountered. So we have an elven rogue that I've ordered. He is going to be one of the NPCs in the fighting pits of Silverhaven. He doesn't have a base attached, A lot of minis don't come with the bases attached. You have to stick them on. And then we have this lady. She is going to be a fire elemental boss type character. And here is the figure I'm going to be painting on the video. I'm using her as a corrupted dryad, so she's kind of like a lower level boss, a dryad who's just turned evil basically. And I just thought this mini really captured the feel. This is a little freebie. It says free on it, but Mitts and Sims are cats, and 2 little cats in a box. It's very cute. I'm going to find a way to pop that into a game. On to box number 2. If you check out the feedback that Mitts and Sims have had on Etsy, you'll see that they do tend to send out a free item with each order. They let you pick from a certain price range, or they can pick for you. So I think I've always picked for myself, because I have a massive list of favourite items in their shop that I want to get. Box number 2, again, carefully packed minis. So the first thing we have here, it's a Mimic. That's another freebie because I didn't order that, but I don't have a Mimic. Perfect. This will be my, I think it was a water brute, basically water elemental. He is printed with the base. The thing about Mitts and Sims is they give you the option of a decorative base, which this one is, a plain base, which just would be plain. There wouldn't be any of the texture or little additions. And you can also get the model with no base. I tend to pay the extra £1, I think it is, to get the decorative base, because I think it just makes the mini look that much better. That's what I've got from Mitts and Sims. So you're going to be seeing more of these ones. So the next thing that I need to do, she'll slot in there like that, I need to clean them and prime them. 3D minis come out printed, so they've got supports and things. A lot of the sellers take the supports off, but not all of them do. But inevitably, there's almost always going to be some mold lines, something like that left. And that's what you use the craft knife, or you can use sandpaper to just very gently scrape off. These feel sturdy, but they are still very delicate and can be easily broken. One thing I'll say about Mitts and Sims, the quality of their prints is outstanding. I mean, they've got weight to them, they've got strength to them. I'm going to stop filming this bit and I'll see you when I'm ready to do the next bit of the model, which may or may not be later on today. So I've got my magnifying light here so that I can see, but because I'm short, I do have to kneel up a bit to look through. And I've also got my mini. I haven't actually stuck her into the base yet. That's just how I've been storing her. So a lot of people would recommend washing your minis once you receive them. I don't do it. I'm not recommending that you do or don't. The reason I don't is because I'm too impatient. So I'm going to have a closer look at both the mini and her base through my magnifying light. I've got my craft knife here and I'll be using it to scrape off any mold lines or any bits that need to be neatened up. Although, to be fair, minis from Mitts and Sims GOR do tend to be pretty clean anyway. There's maybe just a couple of supports that have been left in place, or, you know, something very, very small like that. Not everyone removes them, but it can affect the appearance of the mini, especially once it's painted. It's one of the steps that I don't ignore. I'd love to show you through the magnifying glass, and I'll do my best. This is when a GoPro would be super useful, but here she is through the magnifying lens. and you can see there's not much that's going to need cleaned up. There's a little bit there around her bum and the edge of her cloak, but other than that, she's pretty good to go. And I'll do the same with the base. This is me doing the cleanup on time-lapse using the craft knife just to scrape off any mould lines or remaining supports. That is me happy. Very, very little cleanup needed at all. So the next step is priming, and I'm going to be doing that outside. It's sunny but extremely windy, so I may have to do a voiceover for that. So I've got 5 different primer options. The best thing to do is go with whatever colour is most likely to be the overall colour of the mini when you've finished, or a black one if you want a darker finish on your mini, or a white, grey, or white bone is one of the colours I've got if you want a brighter finish. Now, even though she is corrupted and evil, she's a dryad, so I still want her to be quite vibrant. So I think I'm going to prime her in white bone, which is an off-white. If I use grey, it would work as well, but yeah, I think I'm going to go with the white bone. I just used the cardboard tray from one of my huge packs of Pepsi Max Cherry, and then give the can a good shake, and then light, quick sprays of primer. If you put the primer on too thick, you can lose some of the details in the mini. A lot of people will put a glove on and hold the mini in their hand to prime it. I tend not to do that, and I'm just rotating the tray so that I'm covering all angles of the mini. I will then turn them over and prime the other side. That's just the first coat. I'll do several coats, and I'm not going to film the rest of them. It's just basically going to be the same process, slowly building up coverage, but not worrying too much if you don't get every little crevice, because it's almost impossible to get every part of the mini. And you can buy base paints which you can use to touch that up. You can also prime with a base coat of paint, but the spray is faster and easier. You can see this base is covered in lots of vines and there's some small flowers, but because this is a corrupted druid, I'm probably going to put some reddish tones through it rather than just green. Well guys, welcome to my painting station where I'm going to get started painting my primed mini. So because she isn't attached to the base and it's a very decorative base, I'm going to paint this first. So I'm going to be using Citadel colour layer in Lauren Forest. Now, Citadel paints are designed for Warhammer 40k. You may also see me using some Vallejo game colour paints, probably not purple, but you never know. So I don't really follow the Citadel painting method where you would do a base, a shade or a wash and dry brush. I will use contrast paints, layer paints, shade paints as base colours, just whatever it is that is the colour that I want to use. It can cause issues because the washes and shades are very thin. They can dry with a bit of a shine on them. They can go a bit streaky. So yeah, definitely don't look to me on tips how to paint. I'm going to do most of this on time lapse because it's very time consuming, and the whole time I'm going to be staring through the magnifying glass. So I will talk to you guys in a voiceover. I do have my brushes here and my Army Painter wet palette. I will paint just straight from the pot with Citadel. Some people thin their paints, I'm not one of them, but for the Vallejo brand, they come in a dropper bottle, so I will need the wet palette for that. Right, enough talking, time to paint. There's usually a predominant colour for each mini, so in this case it's the green, and so that's what I'm beginning with. Paint the largest areas first, working my way down to the smaller ones. I try to paint as neatly as possible, but inevitably I do get paint on areas where I don't really want it. It's not too much of a problem because usually you can just paint over it, or at least that's what I do anyway. So this is another day and I'm basically adding other colours to the base and just gradually building up the layers of paint. I try to keep each layer quite thin. This reduces the drying time between coats and means that I can paint the mini faster, but it's also better to apply the paint thinly and build it up, because if you put paint on too thickly, again, as with the primer, you can end up losing some of the detail with the minis, and it's much easier to add more if you've got too little than it is to try to undo putting on too much. Not all minis come with detailed bases, and the ones that do aren't always this detailed. So this one is actually taking me longer to paint than the average mini base would, but I want to do the best job I can. So this is another day and I'm painting the flowers purple and earthy brown in the gaps between the vines. And then tidying up the areas that I have inevitably got purple paint on where it should be green, and just evening up the layers of paint because some areas it goes on more thickly than others and I want it to have a decent finish. Here's the base and my paint covered fingers and fingernails through the magnifying glass. So I've done one coat of green on the vines, a bit of dark brown on the bits of earth that you can see, and the purple flowers. I've only done one coat, so I'm going to go back over the green vines in green and the brown in brown. The flowers I don't think will need going over again unless I accidentally paint them green, which is highly probable. And then I will need to add, I think I'm going to add a red wash along some of the vines, and they'll go up into her body when I start doing that. But yeah, so that's the base. I'm not using a painting handle because the base isn't smooth. It's got the vines sticking out and I don't want to snap any of them off. This is the base painted and I've done a wash of non-oil. Now that I have done the base, I am going to get started on the actual mini. Now, because there is a little bit there that just slots into the base, I don't need to glue this mini together, and I'm probably not going to because it will make it easier to transport. However, for painting, I'll probably just hold her in my hands. I've got some zombies set up in my painting handle, but you do need a base that can be gripped, and this one's just too delicate. So I could glue this onto a standard plain black base. However, I think that might ruin the look of it, and I also don't feel the need. So I'm going to go ahead and get painting this corrupted dryad. Even though this is an intricate and detailed model, it actually was easier to paint than many of the minis that I do, because they might have lots of different items on them and layers of clothing and different skin tone and hair, whereas this one was primarily just green. The biggest brush size I tend to use on these size of minis is a size 1, because larger brushes just tend to be too big. I mostly use my double or single 0 brush and then my 000 for precision work. I'm just standing her in her base to dry, but that's the first base layer, which is her skin. I'm going for a light green. I don't want her to look like an orc. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's only the first base coat. So I'm going to get on with that on time lapse. It may take me a few days to complete her just because of the sheer amount of other stuff that I've got. And as I say, I want to take my time, but the zombies will need to be done as well. So, and I've also got my pink dragon to paint. It's very rare that I'll paint a single mini at a time because I've got so many to do for my games. And as you can see, it virtually takes over the dining table. So if I've got everything set up, I want to make the most of it. So I've been working on my dryad a little more. I still need to make the flame in her hand glow a bit more, and I need to do a wash on her, but once that's done, I think she'll be finished. I'll try and show you through the magnifying glass, but I have to film through it with my phone. It's not the cleanest. I keep getting paint on it. I just wanted to show you my process for painting minis as someone who's only been doing it for a few months. So I would say I'm still very much a beginner and I'm learning, and I am certain there are things I am not doing that I should be and things I'm doing that I absolutely should not. But I'm going to get on with trying to finish this. I would love to be able to film as I'm painting through the magnifying glass, but I don't have a third hand, so I'm afraid this is the best I can do for giving you a close-up. I'm filming this in real time just so you can see the technique I'm using. I'm trying to use light, delicate touches, minimal paint on the brush, and just going slowly, not rushing it. When I'm in this final stage of just, refining the details, it's really hard to know when to call it a day, because you could keep going on refining and improving. It's about accepting when it's good enough, even if it's not perfect. I do have some Vallejo specialist paints for creating a glow and also an iridescent effect, and I have used both of them here, but I'm still learning how to do that kind of glow effect. I'm using synthetic brushes. I would love to get a Kolinsky brush, but they are expensive, and I just feel that when I'm a beginner, it would be a waste of money. But maybe if I get really good at this, I might invest some money in that. I do have a friend who just uses cheap makeup brushes, so that's a tip for you guys. This mini was a real pleasure to paint, and I've had minis that haven't been cured properly and they can be a nightmare. I've had poor quality ones where the lightest touch, something will snap. I've never had that issue with anything purchased from Mitts and Sims. And I'm just putting the final touches here before I show you my finished corrupted dryad. And here we have the finished mini standing in her base. Don't look too closely at her face. They are one of the hardest things to paint, and I'm never completely happy with the ones that I've done, but overall I'm pretty happy with the way she's turned out. And that concludes my mini painting video. There will be a link to Mitts and Sims' website in the description box below so that you can check them out for yourselves and give them a follow on Instagram. As ever, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you back for the next video. But till then, take care. Bye.